My name is Charles Gordon, and I am an American Negro, one of 20 million. I want to show you something of our life here.
I think it's something that's ridiculous. You take the white people in the South that, or not only in the South, anywhere, that refuses to allow a Negro man or a Negro woman to sit in a restaurant or to ride next to them in a bus or a train or anything, and then on the other hand turns around and wants a colored woman to come into their home and cook their food and serve them their dinner after having our hands all in their food. I think somebody's got to be crazy there.
Good afternoon. No matter what your point of view may be, there is significant in the growth in Chicago and across the United States, if not around the world, of a movement known as the Black Muslims. A movement which is popularly believed to preach a doctrine of hatred for the white race, the ultimate supremacy of the Negro race. The headquarters of the Muslim movement is here in Chicago in the 5300 block of South Greenwood, and its leader now is known as Elijah Muhammad. He's in residence here. The most active person in the spreading of the black Muslim movement is Elijah Muhammad's second in command, who calls himself Malcolm X. You were born in Omaha, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And your family left Omaha when you were what, 1 year old?
I imagine about a year old.
And why did they leave Omaha?
Well, to my understanding, the Ku Klux Klan burned down one of their homes in Omaha. They had a lot of Ku Klux
This made your family feel very unhappy, I'm sure.
Well, insecure, if not unhappy.
His mother was the National Recording Secretary for the Marcus Garvey movement. His father was the Midwestern chapter president of this organization. And when his parents were lynched, his father was lynched, his mother was put in an institution, and they separated the children.
In order to understand how any Negro feels under segregation, you have to realize that from the time of infancy, he has it pounded into him that he's not as good as other people. There are things he cannot do. Don't do this, you can't do this, you can't do the other. It builds into a man a feeling of inferiority, a feeling of frustration, a feeling of resentment.
My father was in the top of his class, and even when his favorite teacher asked him what he wanted to be, he didn't say, I want to be a baseball player or musician or a doctor. He said, I want to be a lawyer and help those who cannot speak for themselves and defend those who cannot defend themselves, who need it. And when his favorite teacher said, that's not a realistic goal because you're nothing, you're a Negro, and Negroes can't use their brains. They have to use just their hands. It was crushing.
Segregation to the average Negro means being held back. He's looking for progress. He wants to move forward in the American mainstream. Segregation holds him back.
Then my father started making different decisions for himself. He dropped out of school. He moved to Boston and was just mesmerized by all the buildings and the cars and the people, the music, the fashion. He began going to the nightclubs and getting jobs there, and began, with drugs, cigarettes, drinking alcohol, and being a young person but looking older, living a fast life.
I really was in bad shape.
Well, what kind of bad shape were you in?
Well, I was a typical Negro. I got drunk. I lived in nightclubs, gambled, blow up the fact that in the Negro community is the most crime, the most dope addiction, the most prostitution, the most juvenile delinquency, and this is a curse in our particular society, and I was a part of that.
In the autobiography, he talks about more serious crimes than that, including burglary, for which he was finally arrested.
I was a very wayward, criminal, backward, illiterate, uneducated, and whatever other negative characteristics you can think of type of person until I heard the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
I charge the white man with being the greatest liar on earth.
Elijah Muhammad said he had been taught by Allah directly, that Allah had proclaimed Elijah Muhammad his last messenger, his last prophet.
He comes out of jail. He meets Elijah Muhammad. He began reading. He found Islam.
It was a form of Islam that you wouldn't recognize.
You want freedom. You want equality. But get none.
Use the American expression off-brand.
A group of Negro dissenters is taking to street corner step ladders, church pulpits, sports arenas, and ballroom platforms across the United States to preach a gospel of hate.
And I noticed that after being exposed to the religious teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, immediately it instilled within me such a high degree of racial pride and racial dignity that I wanted to be somebody. And I realized that I couldn't be anybody by begging the white man for what he had, but that I had to get out here and try and do something for myself or make something out of myself.
But of even more interest to New Yorkers is Malcolm X, the Muslim's New York minister. He told Newsbeat that his life changed for him when the Muslim faith taught him no longer to be ashamed of being a black man.
We have come to hear and to see the greatest and the wisest and most fearless black man in America today.
By that time, he had become the principal voice of the Nation of Islam. They had their own mythology that there is a great mother plane in the sky that would rain fire on white people.
Inside the courtroom, I asked Malcolm X, giving his first television interview, whether the black Muslim prophet is preaching race hatred.
He's not teaching hate, he's teaching history.
Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose and the shape of your lips? Who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet? Who taught you to hate your own kind? Who taught you to hate the race that you belong to? So much so that you don't want to be around each other. No, before you come asking Mr. Muhammad, does he teach hate? You should ask yourself, who taught you to hate being what God gave you?
When Malcolm came into the Nation of Islam, you could put all of the followers in a station wagon and still have some room left. But Malcolm came in there and went to work. As you know, the Nation of Islam was never supposed to grow in the manner that it did. But Malcolm taking it from the back alleys and brought it into the universities throughout this country.
He did everything, and he turned a small organization into something really big and thriving.
We're not asking you to give us money to make us rich. We put up businesses. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad has set up more businesses than any black man in America.
They have their own parochial schools where Muslim children are taught to hate the white man.
The whites are blue-eyed devils. They were created by a mad scientist on the island of Patmos. Blue-eyed devils, and I have blue eyes.
You're quoted as having said when an airliner crashed with a number of white people on board that you were glad it happened.
The white race in this country collectively are guilty of these crimes that our people are suffering from collectively, and therefore they would suffer some collective disaster, collective grief. And when that plane crashed in France with 130 white people on it, and we learned that 120 of them were from the state of Georgia, the state that my own grandfather was a slave in, why, to me, it couldn't have been anything but an act of God, a blessing from God, and I frankly and sincerely pray for similar blessings from Him to repeat themselves as often as He can spare.
So, my friends, it's easy to tell our unity will give the white man hell.
So in 1964, my father started learning that, wait a minute, this might not be true Islam.
He made the Hajj in the late spring of 1964. I think he was having a genuine, profound religious impulse to go.
When he made Hajj, and to go to this place where civilization began, and to see all of this history, and religion, and it's pure, right? That it's different than what was in America, that what had been indoctrinated for these hundreds of years.
Everybody wore the white clothing of the Hajj. There was no whites are superior or no blacks are inferior, none of that. That it was sort of a perfect democratization. It was a much more profound spiritual experience.
And he saw that the white people over here, blonde hair and blue eyes, the white that we've been conditioned to think was a race, but it is not. In America, that this sense of superiority and oppression didn't exist, that there was a sense of brotherhood and sisterhood, just simply based on being Muslim.
I think an invitation was arranged with the help of the Saudi government. He wanted it very badly.
But I was fortunate to have been pretty well known by the officials in Arabia, and I became a guest of the state. I was a guest of Prince Faisal, the present King Faisal.
I thought about my father's life. He had never experienced anything like that, and he was being treated like a man. Here he is in a country fighting for human rights, just the right to be human, right? And he goes abroad and he's being treated like a dignitary by many dignitaries. And so to come back and say, look at this great religion that, preaches peace, that preaches brotherhood and sisterhood, that's nothing like we've been learning here.
So his religion, his faith deepened, and his political views widened and deepened.
So when he made his Hajj, he just decided that he was no longer going to be with that organization.
Most of the Muslims who follow Mr. Muhammad absolutely believe that it was impossible, physically impossible, I should say divinely impossible, for a white person to go to Mecca. And my trip there shattered that image, or this concept.
And then the tensions within the Nation of Islam exploded. If it hadn't been for the spiritual immersion, his political views would not have changed to the degree they did.
Tonight, Front Page Challenge welcomes the outspoken Negro leader, Malcolm X.
I don't believe in any form of segregation or any form of racism. I'm against any form of segregation and against racism.
He was not going to abandon his political views. He was going to abandon all the white devil, dissident scientist creates white people. He was moving away from that.
Although we are not integrationists, and we believe that you're a fool to try and mix with someone who doesn't love you.
But that's a considerable change of opinion in Malcolm X.
No, today I'm speaking for myself. Formerly I spoke for Elijah Muhammad. And everything I said was, Elijah Muhammad teaches us thus and so. I'm speaking now from what I think, from what I have seen, from what I have analyzed, and the conclusions that I have reached.
Then the white man is no longer the devil, and he is no longer bound to be evil?
If I judge a man by his conscious behavior, I am not a racist. I don't subscribe to any of the tenets of racism.
Then there are good whites and good blacks and bad whites and blacks.
It's not a case of being good and bad, good or bad blacks and whites. It's a case of being good or bad human beings.
And he thought that if American studied Islam and studied the oneness of God, that there would be a more of an understanding of pure brotherhood and sisterhood, and not, these horrors and traumas of racism, that perhaps we could truly believe in this oneness of God, regardless of, if you call yourself a Christian, you call yourself a Jewish, you call yourself a Muslim, you call yourself whatever, right? Agnostic, Buddhist, that if we practice Islam, if we practice the oneness of God, that we could eliminate this thing that allows one to annihilate someone because of whatever inferiority is being projected on this group of people.
What steps will you take to protect yourself from this threat? I take no steps. I have a rifle. If anybody comes to my house...
Malcolm learned that Elijah Muhammad had a lot of young, beautiful secretaries, quote unquote.
Now I'm discovering that there are things that the head person is participating or engaging in. And so eventually he was put out of the organization, and then he was suspended from the organization.
He was suspended from all public activity. There were beginning to be threats on his life from the Nation of Islam.
Why are they threatening your life?
Well, primarily because they're afraid that I will tell the real reason that I'm out of the black Muslim movement, which I never told. I kept to myself. But the real reason is that Elijah Muhammad, the head of the movement, is the father of 8 children by 6 different teenage girls.
That was the last time I interviewed him, actually. It was the afternoon of the day he broke with him. He called a press conference to announce the break, and I met with him that afternoon, again for a couple of hours. And that was the next to last time I saw him.
Mrs. Shebaz, was your family in bed at the time of the explosion this morning?
I really can't say exactly what happened. I don't know if I woke my husband up or he woke me up, but I remember him pushing me out of the bedroom door, and I looked to my right, and I saw all of the fire.
A week prior, on Valentine's Day, our home had been firebombed.
A firebomb was tossed into the home of Malcolm X here in New York City early this morning. The house was heavily damaged, but Malcolm X, his wife, and 4 children were not injured.
I wanted you to know that my house was bombed. It was bombed by the black Muslim movement upon the orders of Elijah Muhammad.
Had you had any threats, anything like this?
Had any threats? That's all I get is threats. I get not less than 6 or 7 threatening phone calls every day.
His friends in Africa didn't want him to come back to the States. They knew his life was in danger, and they knew who it was in danger from. And they tried to talk him into bringing his family over to Africa and staying in Ghana. And he felt, no, he had to get back to the struggle. So he came back, and there were repeated attempts on his life. His house was firebombed by members of the Nation of Islam.
You attack me, that's one thing. I know what to do when you start attacking me. But when you attack sleeping babies while you are lower than a god.
I could imagine that it was definitely a wake-up call.
I feel responsible for having played a major role in developing a criminal organization. It gave the moral strength to the believer that would enable him to rise above all his negative tendencies. I know, because I went into the movement with more negative tendencies than anybody in the movement.
The only thing that I regret in all of this is that 2 black groups have to fight and kill each other off. Elijah Muhammad could stop the whole thing tomorrow just by raising his hand. Really, he could. He could stop the whole thing by raising his hand. But he won't. He doesn't love black people. He doesn't even love his own followers. Proof of which they're killing each other. They killed one in the Bronx. They shot another one in the Bronx. They tried to get 6 of us Sunday morning. And the pattern has developed across the country. The man has gone insane. Absolutely out of his mind. Besides, you can't be 70 years old and surround yourself by a handful of 16, 17, 18-year-old girls and keep your right mind.
One week later, my father was murdered, gunned down, right here in this space. And actually right there.
Assalamu alaikum.
I was sitting in the first row when Malcolm came on the stage and greeted the audience. Several persons, it happened so quickly I can't describe them, stood up and fired shots.
A team, what they called a special squad of Nation of Islam members from New Jersey, came to one of his meetings and killed him.
And crawled back along the balustrade and shots rang out all over the place as Malcolm's supporters tried to subdue those who had fired upon him. He's now laying on the stage. My agent tells me that he has been shot twice and that he is still alive but feebly.
Ran across the street, they got a stretcher, they put him on the stretcher, they ran, they went across the street with his body, and then, he was pronounced, they pronounced that he was no longer living. And many, yeah.
They killed Malcolm! They shot Malcolm! They shot Malcolm! They shot Malcolm!
And how did you take it when you heard the news that Malcolm was assassinated?
I grieved.
At the time, Malcolm X was,
I thought we had lost a valuable figure in American life.
Long time coming, but I know.
And so, who was this person that made this profound impact all around the world? Who was he?
He's a human being. He was a human being, and human beings are complicated, and I tried to deal with that. I guess I really loved him, actually.
So there's something that attracts you to this man. You know, there's something about him that you know you can trust. You see his sincerity. You see that he, you know, you see who he is, and you trust him.
Mr. X, may I thank you very much for coming on our program and perhaps clearing away some of the cobwebs of misconception that some of us might have had about your belief. And I think you're a very sincere man, and it takes a lot of courage to admit a former belief is wrong, and we congratulate you for that and the service you performed tonight in giving us your views. Thank you so much. Thank you.
It's his insistence on truth.
They absolutely were going to kill me. I'm a man
his insistence on
that I died
justice.
20 years ago.
He's become an icon in the struggle.
Young generation of whites, blacks, browns, whatever else there is, you're living at a time of extremism, a time of revolution, a time when there's got to be a change. People in power have misused it, and I, for one, will join in with anyone, don't care what color you are, as long as you want to change this miserable condition that exists on this earth.
It doesn't matter where you're from in the world. You could be from Europe, China, Africa, Ivory Coast, Mali, Riyadh. You could be from anywhere in the world, as long as you're learning the truth of history. So, because it means then that we're not going to discriminate against others. It doesn't give us the right to kill and bomb and terrorize people because they're not who I think they should be, right? That we all made a significant contribution to the world. And if we teach the truth, then we'll have truth and justice and peace and all of these things that are important to cohabitating.
Malcolm, an extremely engaging character, had a killer smile. If he smiled, it warmed the room. Even though we were nominally enemies.
In the way of your and my freedom, our human dignity, is our cold-blooded, blue-eyed dignity.
How do I feel? I love my father very, very much, and I'm very grateful for his example of life. I'm very grateful for it.
You know, I had done this series of articles, and I think he thought they were fair, which was about as much of a compliment as a white journalist was going to get from
blue-eyed journalist.
A blue-eyed white journalist. Yeah. I hope there's anything useful.